Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. At 5 a.m. Iran time, drones struck an Iran Air Force base in Isfahan. Now, Isfahan is a city that's 441 kilometers south of Tehran. The province has Iran's Natanz nuclear research facility. Iran has not claimed responsibility for the attack. But this attack is being seen as a reprisal for last Saturday's attack where Iran shot over 300 missiles and drones at Israel. Now, Iran has downplayed the damage to its military facilities and it's outright denied that any of its nuclear facilities were attacked. However, will this escalate the conflict? Iran and Israel have waged a shadow war for decades. How will these rounds of direct strikes and counter-strikes end? Joining me to discuss this today are General RAMESHWAR YADAV, former DG Infantry, and my colleague Aditya Kaul. Aditya, it's very interesting that just 24 hours ago we were sitting here and discussing how Iran would be hit by Israel. That the fact that it was not a question of when, not if, but when it would attack. Any surprises that the attack in Iran has just unfolded just a few hours after we discussed it?
You know, not really surprising because we were expecting retaliation. I think we had an agreement yesterday among all the guests on the show that there will be a retaliation. When and what will be the retaliation is something that we'll have to wait and watch. In this case, I think the retaliation has happened and there's a face saving for both Iran and Israel. But it is not a kind of a retaliation which will widen the scope of the conflict to the entire region. We discussed this threadbare yesterday as well. If it was a direct attack on a nuclear facility, if civilians were harmed, if a military infrastructure of Iranian origin was destroyed completely, then this would have escalated certainly. But remember, both the United States and several Western countries are in touch with Israel as well as Iran, and both are trying to save face and do not want this to escalate beyond the proxies and beyond what is happening in Gaza right now. We also saw in the last 24 hours a veto happening in the United Nations Security Council, where in the UNGA, where of course the full membership of the Palestine was denied only because of the veto of the United States. 12 members had voted in favor of Palestine there. So there is some give and take that is happening. There's immense US pressure. As of now, the Gaza military campaign of Israel will only continue. There are 140 hostages. Who knows who might have already died. But I do not see an escalation, a direct escalation between Iran and Israel. Instead, what will they return to is the proxies method. And of course, the proxies, Hezbollah, of course, the Hamas and others in the region will be attacking Israel.
So a return to the covert war is what you're suggesting, which is the kind of war that Iran and Israel have been fighting for close to 4 decades now. General Yadav, do you see this attack as giving what Aditya just said, that a face saver for both Iran and Israel? The fact that Israel seems to have attacked Iran, it's not claimed credit for this attack. Iranians are rattled. They've made a lot of noises saying that there will be a retaliation. Do you see this as an honorable exit now that both sides can call it quits, one all, and then move on with their covert war?
I look at it a little differently. Of course, I'm in agreement with what he has said. You see, it is a very deliberate and very well calibrated game plan that is going on by US and Israel combined against Iran. You see, Israel has drawn Iran very smartly into the battle directly now. So far, Iran has been playing up their proxies. Now, Israel has drawn them in direct one-to-one battle. And by doing so, they have created an opportunity to change the perception of Iran as an aggressor instead of Israel being an aggressor. That is one point. Having done that, now with this kind of a strike, now they're trying to convey a political military message to Iran, thereby saying we are going to degrade your military capabilities so that you do not harass Israel and carry out anti-Israeli activities. That is first part. It also seems to be have objective to neutralize the Iranian proxies engaging in anti-Israel activities, because now this war was all about Iran from the very beginning. It was not Hamas actually. So Iran is the ultimate target of US and Israel combined, and they want to finish this nuisance once for all. Now this is how the entire game plan is being stage managed so as to draw them directly and
Yes.
convey a very
Very
message.
important point there, General Yadav. The fact that, Aditya, as General Yadav mentioned, that it's a ploy by Israel to draw Iran directly into the conflict, to paint Iran as an aggressor. As of now, it was a backstage actor. It was behind the scenes. It was operating its proxies, the three H's, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. But how does this change this proxy war? Will it be of the same level that it was pre-April 1st, or will there be another escalation, something else that we've not seen before?
Well, we might see other escalations, diplomatic and military, because in Gaza, of course, Israel has an upper hand. IDF has created inroads and gathered most of the territory, and the Rafah operation would be certainly underway.
Right.
On the other hand, in Hezbollah, northern Israel, of course, the Hezbollah is a target.
Right.
And I think Hezbollah is much more armed still.
Yes.
They have a lot of supplies still coming in. And I think, the proxies will continue to engage Israel, and that will continue. Of course, this is a very smart move to engage directly with Iran.
Right.
But I don't see this continuing for a very long time.
Right.
Because, as I said, that this is a face saving. There are 300 to 350 projectiles that
Yes.
Iranians sent out to Israel, but there was hardly one person who was injured, one child
Right.
that was
Right.
injured, and there wasn't much damage, even though the Israeli narrative is that this could
Yes.
have been a big major attack and destruction could be carried out.
Right.
But what I see as of now is an escalation at the level of the proxies, not a direct escalation, and that's what the US and the other Western allies were
Right.
trying to avoid at this stage.
They didn't want a full-out, all-out conventional war between Israel and Iran. Assuming there could be one, given the vast geography that separates them of over 1,400 kilometers, it's. I don't think there's a precedent for this, where two countries that are so disparate, they're so separated by geography. At least two countries between Israel and Iran, but they seem to not have made a difference when it comes to striking each other, either through cruise or ballistic missiles
In
or
fact,
drones.
we were discussing this yesterday,
Yes.
that one of the nuclear facilities or some enrichment site could be a target,
Right.
and that's what has happened in this particular area. The map really describes
Yes.
where it exactly happened, but I also hear that Israel had given an assurance to the
Yes.
US that there will not be a direct attack on
Right.
any nuclear facility, and that's
Right.
when a NOTAM was issued. Even
Yes.
the Air India has come out with a statement now that it will not be flying in that
Yes.
region for the next
Yeah.
48 to 72
Right,
hours.
absolutely. And there's a number of flights. In fact, it's a very interesting pattern that we can see there, with the number of flights that are diverted. That immediately tells you which is the area that they're trying to avoid.
Yes.
Iran, obviously a no-fly zone, because everyone anticipated retaliation from Israel. But General Yadav, Isfahan is an interesting place. That over the last 4 years, we've heard a series of reports from the Iranian media of attempts, mysterious blasts. Exactly a year back, in fact, in January 28th to be precise, a series of micro drones struck an ammunition facility in Isfahan. There were blasts at night. No one owned up responsibility for this. Then a couple of months later, there was a case of some Kurdish militants who had been hired to, according to the Iranian security agencies, hired to carry out attacks inside Isfahan. Why is Isfahan so important to Iran, and what makes it a target for such covert action?
You see, Isfahan has got a uranium enriching facility that they have, and
Right.
tomorrow, in case Iran produces a nuclear bomb, the enrichment facility is here. So this is the mother of entire nuclear program what
Right.
Iran has.
Yes.
So that's where the importance is. And even now, the Israeli, the so-called explosion by them in near the airways and not little away from this nuclear facility. Israel is trying to convey a message to Iran that, look, we have capability to hit your nuclear facilities. No, we are
Yes.
not doing it
Right.
like that already promised the US. You see, it is a very big diplomatic and very well calibrated game that
Right.
is going on.
Yes.
And the target is very simple. You see, as you have said, Iran and Israel, they do not share a common border.
Right.
And Iran has got, as far as military capabilities are concerned, in terms of the numbers, unless until there is a contact battle, it has got the aerial bombardment, missiles, drone. They do not have much of meaning when the two nations are at war. Unless until you have capability to hold the ground and to bring the enmity to the negotiating table in
absolutely.
a manner
With infantry, until infantry enters the thing, where the queen of the battle enters, there is no war.
Situation, it is not happening between Iran and Israel.
Yes.
So it is going to be only air battle.
Right.
Wherein Israel and US have got superiority.
Yes.
And otherwise, over other facets, land warfare, over land, sea, space, and cyber. Everywhere Israel has got upper hand.
Yes.
So Iran also knows, they have realized, look, they are fighting a losing battle.
Right.
That is the reason they are sending signals of reconciliation. After the strike of 300 missiles, they said our job is finished.
Mission accomplished. Yes. Right.
There's another point, there's another very important point I want to inject. You see, if you look at the sectarian war between Shias and Sunnis, the Sunni nations, they are on board with Israel as part of Abraham Accord.
Right.
You see? So UAE is there, Bahrain is there. Now Saudi Arabia is known to have reconciled. It is a matter of formalities only. So it is the political economic compulsions which are driving the national interest of all the Islamic countries which are surrounding Israel. So it is a very defining moment, and in this defining moment, Israel and US combined probably are trying to degrade the military capabilities of Iran. That is first part. Having done that, they will reduce the strength and the capabilities of the proxy groups. That is HQ, I call it, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis.
Right.
Even they will also come down in case the Iran reconciles. And time has come when Iran has to reconcile to the political-economic compulsion. They cannot carry on the religious narrative altogether. The economy is in doldrums. Their oil is not being sold. Now the fresh sanctions are being imposed on them. So for their own survival, it is a political compulsion for them. But they would like to reconcile from a position of strength.
Absolutely.
So they are looking for a window where they can dictate their terms, and Israel will also look into the window where they can fire the shot from the position of strength.
Fire the shots from a position of strength, indeed. Absolutely. Thank you very much, General Yadav. You know, you've summed it up beautifully. Shots are being fired between Israel and Iran. Israel has struck back for that attack by Iran. But fortunately, there's been no loss of lives, and that is hope for regional peace, because you know, there's a lot of signaling that's going on between Israel and Iran, and one hopes that, you know, better sense prevails in both the capitals, and both sides call it quits. They've scored their respective brownie points, and now they can move on with it. But thank you very much, General Yadav, Aditya, for joining us this evening to talk about Israel's retaliation, and hopefully this would be the last round of the ongoing Israel-Iran battle. Tensions are rising in the South China Sea. The US and the Philippines have begun their annual military exercises involving over 16,000 soldiers. China has warned that these exercises are provocative behavior. China, of course, is in no position to say that. It routinely bullies and provokes its neighbors. And this is where India comes in. India has sent in the first shipment of the Indo-Russian cruise missile, the BrahMos, to the Philippines. Is India finally countering China's aggression by arming China's neighbors? Or is it another triumph for Atmanirbhar Bharat? Or is it both? Joining me to discuss this are former DG and CEO BrahMos Corporation, Dr. Sudhir Mishra, and my colleague Nivriti Mohan. Dr. Mishra, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you, Sandeep. It's so nice to see you again.
And Dr. Mishra, it's a big day for BrahMos Corporation. I'm fully aware of the fact that you worked several years to realize this day that India would one day export BrahMos missiles, and that day has happened. Is it mission accomplished for you? I'm fully aware of the fact that your successor signed the contract, but you laid the groundwork for it.
Sandeep, if you can recall, whenever we used to meet in any exhibition or at any function, and I used to tell you that my dream is to see that BrahMos missile is exported. India could successfully sign a contract, number one. Secondly, deliver the first set of items which we are supposed to export. This is having several dimensions. It's true that it's a personal ambition accomplished. I have no doubt in accepting it. And the second thing is, if you can see the whole spectrum of export, then as a weapon system, BrahMos is the first weapon system which is being exported to any nation in the world. There is another dimension to it. We really started our efforts in 2015, late 2015, 2016. And that time, you would be surprised that whenever we used to talk to the people in the establishment, they used to ask, India exporting weapons to a foreign nation. It used to be a big surprise. And nobody used to believe. But we have knocked at several doors. We have convinced people that we would certainly meet requirement of Indian armed forces. And we will export also.
We will export as well. Yeah, interesting points there, Dr. Mishra. You know, the fact that, and this is very important, that this is the first complete weapon system that India has exported to any country. Because it's not just the BrahMos missile and the launcher, but it's also the radars, the coastal radars, the ship detection radars and all of that. So it's a complete system that has been exported to Philippines for the first time. But Nivriti, this is a story that you've been following for several months. You've interviewed Dr. Mishra's successor as well, Dr. Rane, who finally inked the contract. And the groundwork, of course, as Dr. Mishra was mentioning, took nearly a decade. But tell us, Nivriti, what has really changed in the government in the last couple of years? Has there been a change in mindset, that the fact that the government finally realizes that you need to export critical weapon systems like the BrahMos?
Of course, there has been a lot of emphasis, as we have been talking on this earlier also, that there has been a lot of emphasis on indigenizing the defense equipment. We are making our own equipment, be any equipment, not only the missiles, it can be drones also. We did a story on that also. So they are focusing on indigenization of the equipment. They are focusing on the export also. If we talk about BrahMos only, then he was talking about it is a complete weapon system. And the ground system, apart from the missile, that is almost 90% indigenized now, and they are focusing on getting it fully indigenized in near future. And when I was talking to the CEO of BrahMos, Atul Rane, he told me that it is 78%, the entire system is 78% indigenized now. So they started in 1998, it was 13%. And then in 2023, it became 78%. And in coming 10 years, they are planning to make it more indigenized, more than 90%.
More than 90%, it will become a fully indigenous, missile system. But, Dr. Mishra, that point, I want to bring you in on that point that you made earlier, that when you would approach the government, I remember you were running up against a wall all those many years back, whenever you tried to push Indian exports, weapon exports like the BrahMos, and the BrahMos is a deadly missile. I mean, it travels at 3 times the speed of sound. That, why is India exporting weapons? We are a peace-loving nation. That was the kind of line that you got. But so has there been a change? Is it now more realistic that, look, there are countries that will need weapon systems precisely because they're being threatened by China, and these are the countries that we need to sell to, and a lot of your potential customers are those that are being scared by the Chinese, dragon, the Navy and the Chinese Air Force. Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam and the Philippines. So is China's anxious neighbors India's new export market?
Before I answer your question, I want to add one more thing. During the COVID, when everybody was sitting at home, I and my team, we have visited Philippines dozens of times. You will not believe. And we thought, although we took precautions, we took a lot of care, it was very difficult to get visa. The flight tickets were not available.
Yes.
And we had to all the way go to Dubai to reach to Philippines. Instead of 7 hours, it used to take 15 hours, 18 hours journey.
Right.
So all those efforts have gone into it, what we are seeing today.
Right.
Now, back to your question, you see, you are very right. India, I have coined a word, defense romanticism.
Right.
Indian thinkers, the defense thinkers, policymakers, they were suffering from defense romanticism.
Right.
They used to think that, if you are a peace-loving nation, you shouldn't export, you should continue to, be the self-sufficient. But the real world is very different than this.
Absolutely.
You see, I want to remind one more thing. Dr. Kalam has taught us, he used to say that strength, respect strength.
Right.
If India is strong, everybody will respect.
Yes.
If India is weak, nobody will respect. Right. Now, coming back to the China angle, you see, we don't want to overtly say that, it is we are against China.
Right.
China is one of our biggest trade partner.
Yes.
But there are issues in the South China Sea, we call it a West Philippine Sea, which are still unresolved. I'll say that it is nothing against China.
Right.
We are having a proactive approach.
Right.
We are willing to give to Philippines. We are willing to give to Indonesia.
Yes.
We are willing to give to Vietnam. Any country, or rather South Africa, or whosoever comes to us, we will give. You see, it is not only a commercial decision.
Right.
It is very a strategic decision.
Absolutely.
And the moment you sell a weapon system, this weapon system will not serve only for 10 years.
Right.
There will be life extension. It's a expensive weapon system.
Absolutely.
So you can't throw out after 10 years.
Yes.
You will be asking us to come for life extension.
Right.
You will be depending on us for spare part supply.
Right.
And I can tell you, the weapon system like BrahMos, although we guarantee that it will serve you for 10 years, but it can very well serve any country for 40 years.
40 years, right.
40. You see, a missile is like an aircraft.
Yes.
If an aircraft can serve for 40 years, 45 years, 50 years, then why not missile?
Right.
So the BrahMos can very well give a good service for 40 years.
Absolutely.
And one more thing you have to look into. That is, we have sold it to their coastal security system. We have not yet sold to the Philippines Navy.
Right.
So both are different arms. We would be selling to Philippines Navy also. And the Philippines, there are, a lot of islands are there. And the army, it's not only a land force, but there is an element of sea also involved in this.
Absolutely.
So,
more orders coming, Dr. Mishra, our way, and this is
from the Philippines Army.
Absolutely. But I'm afraid we're completely out of time here. But thank you very much for giving us those, that perspective on the BrahMos missile, and of course, it's mission accomplished for you. And it's you and your colleagues and your successors who have helped India shed its defense romanticism, as you put it so pithily. But that's a story that we've been tracking very closely for the last couple of months, thanks to Nivrithi's excellent documentary on the BrahMos, the warship killer, which you can catch on the News9 Plus app. Do download and watch. Thank you very much, Dr. Mishra, my colleague Nivrithi Mohan.
3, 2, 1, now.
It's stealthy, lethal, and precise. The BrahMos kills warships. It flies 3 times the speed of sound. Once it acquires the target, it can cut through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China has assembled the world's largest navy. Its neighbors are feeling threatened by the dragon's military might. Many of them are turning to Brahmos to enhance their firepower.
Siddharth Chatterjee, the UN resident coordinator in China, hit the headlines when his video of doing yoga in sub-zero temperatures went viral. He's made a 4.5-minute documentary titled Breathing for Good Health on how to practice deep breathing. Siddharth Chatterjee is a decorated former Indian military officer. He served in the elite Para-SF regiment with postings in the Indian peacekeeping force in Sri Lanka and counterinsurgency operations in India's northeast. He's on a mission to educate and encourage people to practice deep breathing exercises for stress relief and rejuvenation. Now, he joins me today from Beijing to discuss fitness and the benefits of breathing. Mr. Chatterjee, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you for having me on your show.
You know, it's interesting. I met you for the first time in 2019. And I met you 5 years later, and I couldn't recognize you the last time I saw you. You had literally, lost 20 kgs. Tell us about the story of your personal transformation through COVID.
Let's start with what COVID did to us, Sandeep. It struck us like a bolt of lightning. And in that flash of that lightning, we really saw the contours of human health emerge and the fragility of human health, not just of human health, but health systems across the world. In fact, we thought the most developed countries had the most advanced health systems, and look at the attrition, the morbidity and mortality we witnessed there. So I think, COVID in many ways turned out also to be a great teacher. Now, prior to COVID, I was weighing about 85 kilos. I had hypertension with a systolic diastolic murmur of about 160 by 90. I was on cholesterol medicine for close to 15 years, 30 milligram cholesterol tablets. I just felt, unhappy with myself in the body I was living in. I was constantly in a state of acute stress, which was kind of building up over time. Even though I used to be very sporty, on an average, I would do a half marathon every week. But
and not to mention you're a special forces officer, so I mean that must count for a lot.
Well, but after you give up all that, I took a premature retirement in 1996 December. So I moved on in life, and when life becomes one where you give up on your real practices and you just allow indulgence to overtake your life, I started falling sick very easily. For example, every year prior to 2020, I would get a flu, despite a flu vaccine, and I would be bedridden for about 2 weeks. And it was in 2020 I'd gone with a Kenyan delegation. I was that time the UN resident coordinator in Kenya to the Silicon Valley and then to Washington, D.C., very successful visit. And that morning I was supposed to leave for Nairobi, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I just felt that this is someone that I don't recognize, and where I had come to in terms of being, borderline obese, the state of, bad health, not feeling happy with myself, despite the fact it was a very consequential visit in terms of the UN-Kenya partnership. And I felt something had to change. So I was sitting at the lounge at the airport when I came across this gentleman called Wim Hof and his breathing practice. And that's when my curiosity got harnessed. And, I read a little bit about fasting. So that morning I decided I will not have breakfast. And when I got onto the plane, it was a long flight via Dubai to Nairobi, I ate nothing. And from the following morning, and this was March of 2020, when I started to practice this. And it has been a journey. It didn't happen overnight. And what I realized is that the power of the breath, which we call Pranayama, and in China, it's the practice of Qigong, is so powerful that modern medicine has still not been able to tap into the real potential that lies within our breath. Our ability to fast, our ability to be exposed to the cold, our ability to actually harness immune system within ourselves. And just for your audience to know that in 1998 there was an American doctor that discovered nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide, for which he got the Nobel Prize, is a signaling molecule in the cardiovascular system. Yes. It is what keeps our blood pressure normal, but it also prevents us from falling sick because it kills any virus or bacteria that comes in contact with it. So what's interesting is that our monks, in Indian history, this was well known. In Chinese history, it was well known. They knew there was something within our body which helps us to prevent from falling ill. Well, it all lies in our breath, in our ability to really conquer our breath. And when we conquer our breath, you learn to manipulate your brain, because the brain is your master. Yes. But once you learn to manipulate your brain, you then start taking control of your health and life. And, ultimately, in the words of Herophilus, who said that, when health is absent, wisdom cannot reveal itself, art cannot manifest, strength cannot fight, wealth becomes useless.
And it all starts with it all starts with deep breathing. But tell us, Mr. Chatterjee, how did you choose this, extreme video to raise awareness about breathing and pranayama in yoga? How did this video come about?
So what happened was I'd been practicing this, and I noticed that, in the past 4 years, I had not fallen sick. I did not get COVID. My son got COVID here. Right. People around me, my entire office got it, and I didn't. But I was reading all the literature around it. Andrew Huberman, who's a neuroscientist at Stanford, reading the books of David Sinclair on fasting, who's at Harvard. So I was putting the science together. And when I started to practice this, I noticed that as I went more into the cold and challenged myself in inclement weather, I noticed that my body would actually adjust to it. Our body produces something called brown fat, which we lose in time. I was able to resurrect it and bring it back. In fact, Sandeep, I have a level of fitness which actually is slightly superior to what I had in the Special Forces. Let me give you an example. In 3 minutes, I'm able to execute 100 push-ups and 55 pull-ups. I'm able to do a half marathon now in 1 hour and 20 minutes, 1 hour and 40 minutes, which I used to do in 2 hours and 10 minutes in Kenya. So there are dramatic changes which have taken place. At the foundation of it is our breath. Over to you.
Absolutely, and that's fascinating that you are today over 50 and you're fitter than what you were in the Special Forces back in the day, over 2 decades ago. That's absolutely fascinating to hear. But
I'm not over 50, I'm 60.
Oh, right. I couldn't tell. But Mr. Chatterjee, India is looking at a health emergency right now. People aren't eating right, we're not sleeping, we're addicted to all kinds of screens, small and big. What would be your advice to Indians who want to follow your footsteps? How can one become like Siddharth Chatterjee? Maybe not to the level of meditating and breathing in the snow, but how can one lead a healthy life? What's your advice to Indians who are watching you today?
What I'm doing can be done by anybody. I am no exception. Sandeep, please understand, and let me emphasize that with every emphasis at my disposal. Anybody can do it. But step number 1 is give up sugar. Right. The entire world has an addiction to sugar, refined sugar. And that is what is a major cause for chronic diseases, such as diabetes, such as hypertension, such as cardiovascular diseases. It is leading to obesity. Everybody is getting more and more obese. And we have a reward system that, you reward our children. They do something good, you give them chocolate. If they are crying, you give them chocolate, little knowing how much of damage we are doing to them. You want to get old quickly, consume as much of sugar as possible. It's the fastest. Right. It actually makes you age faster than consuming cigarettes. But sugar is more addictive than heroin. So the first step is your diet, is to give up sugar. Combine that with breath. Breathing is very important. So different forms of pranayama. I do a very difficult type of breathing, but I would suggest that people should go to the difficult part of breathing, because it's like going to a gym. When you pick up stronger weights, your arms become stronger. Absolutely. So breathing is key to that. A third element is fasting. We have lost the value proposition of fasting. Why? Because we are unable to control this guy, which is what is known as the Pavlovian response in biology. And we are addicted to food. It's not the need, it's the greed for food. We are programmed to eat breakfast, lunch, dinner. Last 4 years, I have eaten 1 meal a day. Every 6 months, I fast for 5 days, water only. Every 3 months, for 3 days, water only. Every day, I will eat in the evening in a window of 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the evening because I have many official functions to attend to. But in between, I would not be eating anything, I would be consuming water. Why? Because our pancreas is producing insulin. Our body is in an insulin overdrive, so over time we develop insulin resistance, and therefore all the problems of diabetes, and therefore we have to depend on companies like pharmaceutical companies like Novo Nordisk who provide insulin, and then they become insulin dependent from external sources. But the damage it is doing to the body is extensive, you know.
Right.
But the issue is you can resurrect yourself. In fact, today, as per the doctors here, my biological age is around 30. My heart age is at around 20. So when I used to wake up in the morning in 2019, 2018, 2020, my resting heart rate used to be at around 75. Today, my resting heart rate drops to about 36, which, by the way, is the same resting heart rate as someone called Eliud Kipchoge from Kenya. Right. And he's one of the elite marathon runners. Absolutely. So you can actually reverse aging, and reverse aging takes hard work. It's a combination of fasting, it's a combination of breath work, it's a combination of high intensity interval training. And I do 10 minutes of high intensity interval training. I don't have the time to spend 1 or 2 hours in a gym. In fact, it's utterly unnecessary. So about 10 to 15 minutes of high intensity interval training. But a cold exposure is magical. And when I talk about a cold exposure is have a warm bath, but take it to the cold. And the cold ramps up your immune system. It ramps up your metabolic activity. The brain does not like the cold. So you're overriding a signal from the cold. And by the way, what it does, it gives you a rush of dopamine. So I get the effect of dopamine for 16 to 18 hours in a day. You get the same rush of dopamine by, you know, having a mithai, having a barfi or something, but that's for about 5 minutes. But over time, it's like the law of diminishing returns. You constantly need more and more and more. And therefore, you become, that addiction to sugar takes place because you are getting that signaling of dopamine.
Right.
You can
Absolutely.
actually take it all back.
And
what I'm trying to say is, anybody can do it.
You know, tell us about the comments that you've been getting. Your videos have gone viral. I've seen everyone from Anand Mahindra to Sangeeta Reddy commenting on it, Eric Solheim as well. Tell us about what you felt when you read those comments, you know, and because health and fitness is something that is a global concern. It's not just an Indian concern now. How did you react to these this outpouring of expressions from all your friends, colleagues, and well-wishers?
You know, what I realized over these years of COVID, when the world suffered, the entire world suffered, you know, people saw what the consequence of poor health is. The impact of COVID has created an economic crisis that rivals the Great Depression of the 1930s. It ruptured families who could not even attend to funerals and cremations because of that. But what it showed was not just the fragility of the human race, our health systems, but the fragility of the way we are living our lives. We are, you know, the consequence of the way we are living, and who knows what is the next pandemic looming out there, which would be far more deadly with higher velocity. I genuinely believe that my purpose as a United Nations civil servant, as an international civil servant, is about the Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable Development Goal number 3 is about universal health coverage. What does universal health coverage mean? It is about good health and well-being, and that's why I quoted Herophilus to say that that is the foundation for social prosperity, for family foundations, for communities, for nation states to progress. Now, as individuals, because it's not just governments who can ensure good health. Ultimately, it is up to us as individuals, whether we want to smoke, drink, consume lots of sugar. It's an individual choice. But it is also an individual choice to have good health. I'm a father. My son is 13 years old. I want to be there for him, fit as a fiddle. I want to make sure that I'm with my colleagues. I'm in a state of fitness and well-being so that I can portray that sense of fitness and well-being around me. So I actually feel that I have a purpose in life. Having lived in about 13 countries prior to China, I have seen how poor health systems can really have such a negative impact. I've seen it in my own home with my father, who had a stroke and was bedridden for 7 years. I don't want to be in that situation ever. So I have taken charge of my health, and I've realized the consequence it has been by taking charge of it. I hope I'm able to spread that message. I believe the greatest gift one human being can give to another is the knowledge of good health.
the knowledge of good health, and you've given us so many lessons there, Mrs. Chatterjee. The Snow Yogi himself telling us his life lessons and his secret of a 60-year-old man who has the health of a 30-year-old. And this is huge for Indians who are struggling with ill health, who are addicted to sugar, and they have all kinds of lifestyle disorders. But thank you very much, Siddharth Chatterjee, for joining us this evening on the News9 Plus show and telling us the secrets of the Snow Yogi. Thanks for watching.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Good to see you, Sandeep. God bless.
India's general elections 2024 began today. Nearly 100 crore voters are eligible to vote. You have 1.8 crore first-time voters. But interestingly, there are 2 lakh voters who are more than 100 years old. These voters have seen everything from independence, they've gone to jail as freedom fighters, they've seen the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, the emergency, assassinations, political victories. They are the ones who must have voted in the first election of independent India, and they're as excited, if not more, to vote today. News9 Plus has spoken to some of those voters, and joining me to talk about her interaction with these centenarian voters is my colleague Nivriti Mohan. Nivriti, fascinating story there on the centenarian voters. What's your big takeaway when you travel through Haryana to meet our centenarian voters? What kind of story of Indian democracy did you come back with?
First of all, meeting them, the people who are 100 years old, 109 years old, somebody is 104-year-olds, and even 111-year-old person was there. So at the time of independence, they must have been around 30 to 31, 32 years old, well capable of understanding everything.
Right.
So although when you talk to them, they don't remember all the things exactly, but still they are able to discuss with you, they are able to share your experiences with you. Many of them told me that they have participated in the first election of independent India.
1951.
Yeah, 1951, 52. And then when you hear that and you think about it, and you are amazed with the thought that they have voted in the first election after independence, and they are voting in this election as well.
And beyond that, Nivriti, it's the point that, you know, I remember one of the ladies that you spoke to, a 109-year-old voter, she said she's as excited to vote today as she was back then in the first election. So here's my point. If you have 109-year-old voters who are going out to vote, despite the heat, despite all the problems, what's keeping the rest of India from voting and casting their vote? And this is low voter turnout has always been an issue with us.
When I asked one of the ladies who was 109 years old in village Haryana that, why are you voting? You should not vote.
Right.
Then she asked me, why should not I vote and you should also vote?
Right.
I said, you are not healthy, you are not well, you refrain from going there. She said that when entire country is voting, there will be so much of crowd at the booth, then why should not I vote? I will also be voting.
Right.
And she requested all the voters in India that when I can vote, why can't you? So this is the kind of emotion, this is the kind of energy that they possess, and they inspire everybody in India who is a voter, who is above 18 years of age.
Absolutely. Inspirational stories there, Nivriti, and you can catch Nivriti's story 100 and Voting. It's dropping on the News9 Plus app. Download and watch.
मेरा कद दरद सतसंग में मीरा मत जय बबल मत दाऊंगी जरूरी सतसंग में अरे भगवान दादा मत दाऊंगी जरूरी सतसंग में अरे भगवान मेरा कोई बबल बरद सतसंग में मी अमत दय बबल मत दाऊंगी
Sunehri Devi invokes the Almighty with her soulful singing. She is thanking God for a long and eventful life. Over her lifetime of 109 years, she has seen India win independence from British rule. She was 32 when the tricolour went up on the Red Fort in 1947. She has seen the horrors of partition and the coming together of a new, united India. Sunehri Devi doesn't vividly recall it, but she has voted in the first elections of independent India in 1951. Since then, she has witnessed the formation of 17 Lok Sabhas and 15 Prime Ministers leading the country. Come May 25th, and Sunehri Devi will again exercise her right to vote. This time to elect the 18th Lok Sabha. Along with Sunehri Devi, many other Centenarian voters will cast their vote in 2024.
देनी चाहिए वोट,
देनी चाहिए।
देश का भी भला हुआ है, गांव का भी भला हुआ है,
सारे सुधार हुआ और वो पाकिस्तान घर मदर का क्या फायदा? कोई ना देगा तो क्या करेगा? क्या देगा? कुछ नहीं लेना। उसकी सरकार में भी गिनती कोई नहीं। क्या करना है? देना चाहिए। हाँ पड़ी देखाऊंगी।
कौन सी उंगली पे वोट लगेगी? इस पर? इस पर।
वोट तो देना ही चाहिए, नहीं का तो प्रश्न नहीं है।
दिन में वोट दे सको, सब देनी चाहिए। खुशी हो गाँव में।